out there from the Badger Rock Garden. Here we are for another one of our virtual cooking workshops. We're starting in the garden because we wanted to show you where what we're cooking comes from today. So if you have cucumbers in your garden or your farm, you know that this week they started just exploding with abundance. I was gone for a couple days from my own home garden. I came home and I had 30 cucumbers from a tiny little patch of cucumbers. So they are really starting to produce if you have cucumbers in your own garden. And this is what they look like if you plant just a normal cucumber. They grow in a big vine. So we usually build a trellis for them to climb on. We usually grow cucumbers on A-frame trellises so they don't get so tall that you can't reach them, and so that they also though can cover the whole sides of the trellis and you can walk along each side and harvest as you go. So you can see when you grow cucumbers, they grow these little tendrils on their vines, and those are for grabbing onto so that they can climb. So they really do prefer to climb, and if you let them climb, your cucumbers themselves are not going to be on the ground. And that's a good thing, because when fruits and vegetables lie on the ground, sometimes the part of the vegetable in contact with the ground stays too moist and starts to rot. So it can keep them fresher to keep them up off the ground, similar to how you would trellis tomatoes, also to keep them up off the ground. And just like a tomato too, when you see a flower, look at that, there's a pollinator right there showing us exactly how it's done. When you have a flower, the pollinators are going to go in there and get pollen from one flower, bring it to the next flower, and once the flowers get pollinated, that is when cucumbers will start to grow. So come on over here and we'll show you these cucumbers in action. So here is a tiny little baby. You can see it used to be a flower, but the flower got pollinated, and so now the flower's work is done. It shrivels and falls off and the fruit starts to grow. The whole goal of a plant is to make seeds. So if you open up a cucumber, what you see inside is seeds. Those are cucumber babies. You can save those seeds to plant cucumbers next season. And once they start getting bigger, they start looking more and more like the kind of cucumber you would find in the store. And when they're ready, you can just snap them right off the vine and bring them on into the kitchen. So these are vining cucumbers. These are the more common type that you'll see in people's farms and gardens, the cucumbers that like to climb. So I'll show you another variety over here. We have another type called a bush cucumber. They grow vines too, but really small ones. So they kind of stay close to the ground. You don't have to give them a trellis to climb. They're a great option if you're growing cucumbers in a smaller space and you don't have a way to help them go up. And cucumbers, at this time of year, the ones that you planted the earliest in the season, which is around early May, are starting to make cucumbers. Cucumbers get ready quick enough that you can also plant a midsummer crop. So around the middle of July, pop in another planting of cucumbers and you'll have some beautiful cucumbers ready for the fall. These are bush cucumbers, so we did not make a trellis for them to climb because they will just hang out on the ground and do their thing. They're super productive. They're one of my favorite kinds of fall cucumbers to grow. And what we're going to do is combine those cucumbers with some dill. If you planted dill early in the season, it's probably already flowering. Those flowers will get pollinated and make seeds, and you can collect those seeds to plant dill for next year's garden. Or you can just leave them. Dill will self-seed. It'll drop its seeds on the ground. They'll sit in the ground all winter long, and then next spring you'll have dill popping up everywhere. Once you plant dill, get ready because it will do that. It will spread and start popping up everywhere. But the part that we use for pickles are the leaves of the dill. So this is what gives dill pickles that lovely dill flavor. And if you have fresh dill in the garden, oh my goodness, it is so much better than the dried stuff you can buy at the store. The flavor is just so much stronger. Oh, it smells so good. So that is dill pickles. Garden portion. We're going to head into the kitchen in a minute and show you all how to make dill pickles from scratch using the cucumbers and dill from your garden. So I told you we were going into the kitchen, but I was lying to you because on the way out of the garden, I noticed that these are getting ready. These are called Mexican sour gherkins. These are a tiny little cucumber that looks like a watermelon. This is a full-grown Mexican sour gherkin. They're also called cucamelons. And you can pickle these. These make the most delightful little pickles. You can just pack a jar full of sour gherkins or cucamelons and just pop little mini pickles in your mouth all day long. They're some of my very favorites. And they're definitely a Badger Rock Middle School student favorite as well. Oh my goodness, when they come back in the fall, these cucamelons, it's hard to keep them on the vine because kids will just come in here and so these are great to pickle. We've sold them at our farm stand too, super popular. And they, like a vining cucumber, they need something to climb. So you can see they are starting to climb up this trellis. They're going to go up and around all the way over, and we will have cucamelons dangling from above our heads for the rest of the season. So try growing those. They like to be started early in the spring, and they'll just vine all season long and start getting ready about this time of year. All right, and this time we will see you in the kitchen for real. All right, here we are in the kitchen with our cucumbers and our dill from the garden. If you recently harvested garlic, which if you planted some last fall, you probably pulled this about a week ago or so. Garlic is a great addition to pickles as well. And really, there are so many ways to do pickles depending on how you like to spice them, depending on the ratios you like. You can even cut your cucumbers differently depending on the shape of pickle you like. So I know that, sometimes when you buy pickles, you'll get spears. So if you want to, you can cut your pickles into spears, like so. Just cut them into spear shapes here. To put in, this is a really big cucumber, and this is a really dull knife. So see how this works out. But you can cut your cucumbers easily into spears, like you would find in cucumbers that you buy in the store. They're often sold in spear shapes. Or you can cut them into rounds. You can also get pickles like this shape. And you can also make pickles this shape. So it is up to you and your preference of how you like your pickle to go. And you're going to need a jar. And if I'm making my pickles into spears, I like to just put them up and down in the jar to pack as many cucumbers as I possibly can into this jar so that I can have as many pickles on the other side of all of this as possible. You can also pickle a lot of things that are not cucumbers. We have pickled carrots in our classes with youth and with community. We've pickled okra. We've pickled green beans. Dilly beans are delicious. You can pickle watermelon rinds. There are so many things you can pickle. But the idea is to put whatever it is that you're pickling it into a jar, and you want to make sure that the vegetable not poking up above this this piece with the help me out, I can't remember my words. The threading. You want it to be below the threading so that you have enough air space on top of your pickles to have a little air in your jar. And what we are going to do next is put in some dill. So it's as simple as just tucking some fresh dill into here. And you might have to pick out a cucumber to fit your spices too. You can also flip-flop it and put your seasonings first. That's another great way to do pickles, to make sure you get all that goodness into your jar before you get your cucumbers in there. So I just put a couple sprigs of fresh dill in there. I love to put 1 clove of garlic in each jar of pickles. And I usually take the peel off the garlic so that all of that good flavor can get in there. Just tuck that in there too. And really, like I said, you can put whatever flavorings, whatever spices you like in your pickles. My probably favorite combination is to put some mustard seeds. These are just mustard seeds from a mustard plant. So if you grow mustard greens in your garden and it starts getting hot and they send up a flower, let that flower get pollinated and you will have your own mustard seeds that you can collect and use for pickles or whatever else you'd like to use mustard seeds for. I also really like to put red pepper flakes in my pickles. Again, it is this time of year that hot peppers are starting to pop on your plants too. You can harvest your hot peppers, stick them in a dehydrator or an oven on low, dry out your own peppers, pop them in a coffee grinder and make your own red pepper flakes too. Black peppercorns. I love a little bit of black peppercorns in my pickles. So I'm putting about a 1/4 teaspoon of each of these things in here as we go. And that is my favorite recipe for pickles. If you all have other favorites, pop them in the comments. I love how different people make their pickles. Some people like to put sweet onions in their pickles too, so you get a Vidalia onion and chop that up, slice it up, and put it in your pickle jar along with your garlic and your cucumbers or whatever else you're pickling. If you are using sour gherkins or cucamelons, you can pop those in the jar just like you would a cucumber spear or round and just pickle them the very same way. And the next piece, now that we have our jar full of the vegetables we're going to pickle and all our spices, is to make the brine. Brine is so easy to make. It is simply 1 part vinegar to 1 part water. Excuse me. So you can use white vinegar. You can use apple cider vinegar if you prefer. I usually use one of those two. So there is my vinegar. And then I'm going to go grab a cup of water as well. So we have our cup of vinegar, cup of water, and we're going to put a tablespoon of salt. You can use pickling salt. If you see pickling salt in the store, that is specifically for pickling. The only difference between pickling salt and regular salt is it doesn't make your brine as cloudy. So it'll make your brine a little more clear. So if you're not worried about your pickle aesthetics, you don't have to worry too much about your which type of salt you're using either. So now I have my water, 1 part water, 1 part vinegar, and a tablespoon of salt. This is going to make about 2 jars of pickles, but if you're making a whole bunch of pickle jars, you can just up your brine using those same ratios. So instead of 1 to 1, you could do 2 cups to 2 cups and 2 tablespoons of salt. So just up it depending on how many you want to make. And the next step is to dissolve the salt in the water and vinegar. If you don't cook your water and vinegar and make it hot, the salt will still usually dissolve. I've done this with kids, just putting the salt, water, vinegar in a jar and shake it until the salt dissolves. It just goes a little quicker if you heat it up. So we're just going to warm this up until the salt is dissolved, and that is it. That is all brine is. Vinegar, water, and salt. Alright, it's already looking close. And just like that, it was all dissolved. Carry this over back to our jar. If you have a funnel, that's easiest for adding the brine in there so you don't spill it. And I'm just going to fill it until the threads on the top of the jar. Like I said before, just to leave a little headroom in here. And so you can see your cucumbers are totally submerged. Your spices and seasonings are all just happily hanging out in there. And you're going to put the top on your jar. And I usually, if I'm making refrigerator pickles, I'll leave it out for a couple hours, even to overnight, just to pickle, to get a little more of that pickling flavor in there before putting it in the refrigerator. These would be then considered refrigerator pickles. Once you put them in your refrigerator, the salt and the vinegar helps preserve them as well as the coldness of a refrigerator. So they can last for a couple months in your refrigerator, just sitting here like refrigerator pickles. If you want your pickles to last longer than that, you'll have to can them. In canning, we showed you that process when we made the cherry jam, so you can go back and look at that recipe. You need a canner, and basically what you do is submerge your cans in boiling water for 10 to 15 minutes, and it's going to sterilize them and seal these cans shut, and then your pickles can be shelf stable. They can survive happily and well preserved on a shelf for up to 18 months. But once you open them, then you have to pop them in the refrigerator. The downside of canning pickles to me is that they are less crunchy, and I love a good crunchy pickle. So I usually stick with refrigerator pickles. But if you want to keep them longer, you can can them. So that is pickles. Demystified for you. Simple recipe, delicious. Pickled okra is one of my favorite things. You know that sliminess of okra that I hated as a kid? It de-slimes the okra, adds the crunch. My kids love pickled okra. Green beans, carrots, you can pickle jalapeno peppers, you can pickle green bean, you can pickle so many things. But this is how you would make a classic dill pickle. I hope you all enjoy it, and if you all have other ways you like to make pickles or recipes you want to share, pop them in the comments and let us know. We'd love to try them in this kitchen too. Thanks for tuning in, y'all, and have a good rest of your day.